Hello, my name is Shane with AllMax Software Technical Support, and I'm here with your video tech tip for this week. Do you have equipment that uses meters and gauges? Do you want to keep an historical log of all your meter and gauge readings? Would you like to create work orders based on those same readings? Inside our Antero maintenance program, there are a variety of ways you can use meters and gauges to gather information about your equipment and create scheduled work orders. In today's tech tip, we will be exploring how to set up meters and gauges, apply readings, and attach meters and gauges to a template to create scheduled work orders from your meter and gauge readings. The first thing I'm going to show you today is how to attach a single or multiple meters and gauges to your equipment. From the main application ribbon inside our Antero maintenance program, select the meter and gauge icon. Double-click on it, and that will launch the meter and gauge section of the program. You will now have a list of all the meters and gauges set up for your selected department or facility. Keep in mind in the right-hand corner, we can filter by department by simply selecting all to display all our departments or by selecting a specific department from the list. In this example, I'm going to select all, and I'm going to show you how you can add a meter and gauge to a piece of equipment. From the utility ribbon above the AllMax grid, we'll want to select the plus icon. Selecting the plus icon will populate a meter and gauge window. From the meter and gauge window, we will need to select the piece of equipment we wish to add a meter or gauge to. Selecting the options button will now populate a list of all our available equipment for our selected department. We can use the AllMax grid to filter down to the specific piece of equipment we wish to add a meter or gauge for. In this scenario, we will be adding both a meter and gauge to this specific piece of equipment. Select OK. And now it's going to ask you to give a unique name for a meter and gauge. Keep in mind you can add multiple meters and gauges to a single piece of equipment, but for each meter and gauge added to a single piece of equipment, it will need to have a unique name. In this scenario, we'll be adding an ampage gauge. We'll want to be sure to designate our units of measurement. In this case will be amps, and we'll want to be sure to designate that this will be a gauge. Note, a meter will have a rolling value where a gauge will have a minimum and maximum range. Once you've selected all the desired information, you'll want to be certain to select the save icon, and now we've created an ampage gauge for this selected piece of equipment. You also have the ability from the utility ribbon, instead of selecting from the plus button, you can select next to it the drop-down arrow and add a similar meter or gauge for any piece of equipment you highlight in the AllMax grid. By doing so, it will pre-populate several pieces of information for us. Now, since we're adding an hour meter for this specific piece of equipment, we can simply change the name of it to an hour meter, and then I'm going to also modify the units to hours. Be sure to select a meter instead of a gauge, since this will be going up in incremental value. Once you've selected all the desired information again, click the save icon, and we have now created an hour meter in addition to our ampage gauge inside the program. The next thing I'm going to go over is how to apply meter and gauge readings inside the meter and gauge section of Antero, and how to apply readings to your open work orders. Inside the meter and gauge section, be certain to narrow down the piece of equipment you're looking for from the AllMax grid to apply any desired meter or gauge readings. We can now see that we have the existing piece of equipment that we added an ampage gauge for, as well as an hour meter. To apply readings for these, we will simply populate information in the reading column for our desired meter and gauge readings, and then we can select the Apply Meter and Gauge Reading icon from the utility ribbon. Click on this icon, and now you will see a date and time window appear. You can populate the current date and time by default, or you can select the options button to navigate to a specific date and time you wish to select. By clicking yes, it will apply those meter and gauge readings, and you can see as we highlight each meter and gauge that those readings are now starting to appear in a historical table in the detail section of the screen. To apply meter and gauge readings to an open work order, we'll need to navigate to our open work order section, and then we'll need to be able to find our open work order for the piece of equipment that we wish to attach meter and gauge readings for. Once you've found the desired work order number as well as the piece of equipment associated with it, be sure to use the information tree to navigate to the meter and gauge section. From the meter and gauge section, you will see any attached meters or gauges for that open work order. You can then populate the reading from your open work order for those meter and gauges. In this scenario, we'll update this information to reflect what the employee has updated on his work order or her work order to reflect the current meter or gauge reading. Once you've populated that information, when you close out this existing work order, it will update the meter and gauge reading and stamp it with the time and date that you close out the work order. Note, if you have a SCADA environment, there is an available interface to collect your meter and gauge readings using OPC and DDE. Please contact AllMax software for more information about that option. Lastly, I'm going to show you how to schedule your work orders inside the template builder using a meter or gauge. Inside your template builder, in the Schedule Create Options tab, we will want to navigate to the meter and gauge section in the left panel information tree. Be sure to select the box next to Enable to enable meter and gauge scheduling. From the utility ribbon, select the plus icon to open a window of your available meter and gauges for the equipment defined in your template. Select the corresponding meter and gauge you wish to enable meter and gauge scheduling for. Keep in mind you can select multiple meters and gauges for each piece of equipment in your template. In this scenario, we will select both an amp gauge as well as an hour meter. Once you've added your meters and gauges, we are now ready to define the parameters that will determine when a scheduled work order is generated. For your meter, we need to enter a numeric value in the usage field to set the desired usage interval between meter readings. You'll find the usage field right here, and we will select our desired interval value of 500 hours. Every 500 hours, a scheduled work order will be created for this piece of equipment. For your gauge, we will need to define a minimum and maximum threshold in these two columns here, labeled minimum and maximum, to determine when a scheduled work order will be generated. When your gauge reading deviates outside the minimum or maximum ranges, a scheduled work order will be created. In this scenario, we're going to select 85 amps as our maximum range and 15 amps as our minimum range. Note, meter and gauge scheduling can be used in conjunction with interval scheduling. The program will defer to whichever schedule occurs first. Today we have learned how to attach meters and gauges to our equipment, apply readings, and schedule work orders with meters and gauges. My name is Shane with AllMax Software Tech Support, and that's your video tech tip for this week. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more, please take a few minutes to subscribe and explore the other videos on our YouTube channel, or visit our website at allmaxsoftware.com.